Another year, another bowl season for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Rutgers increases its record to 6-4 on the season with a resounding win in College Park over the Maryland Terrapins, 31-17. I got to be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence with the history that Rutgers has had against Maryland, the history Rutgers has had this season with teams that play the style of offense Maryland plays. But got to credit to them. They figured something out in the bye week because this is a totally different team. Offensively and defensively. Larry, welcome back to the show. High-level thoughts on this big win in College Park for the Scarlet Knights.
Mike, yeah, thanks for having me back on the show. Always an absolute pleasure to be on the Knight Report podcast with you. Pulling the late nights, I'm always down for that. Look, I was.
Well, it is late night with Larry K, so you're living up to your reputation there.
There you go, bro. I love it. I love it. You got lines, bro. Look, I thought the same thing as you, right? I was kind of saying the best matchup for Rutgers in the remaining 4 games might not be the best teams. And I thought Maryland, despite not necessarily having a great record, might be a tough matchup for us, given the history, but also given how they play. I mean, the playmakers on the perimeter, the way they can pass the ball. Edwards was able to run the ball, too, a little bit, which was getting us off balance to an extent. But whatever they did do, Shiano said, and I was telling you a little backstage, whatever they did do as far as Joe Harris-Simiak tearing it down to the studs and figuring something out, it did work because it's a different defense the last 2 weeks than we saw for that 4-game stretch. I don't want to say 4-game stretch, 3-game stretch after Nebraska. That was really brutal on us, especially with perimeter playmakers. So great to see the D step up. I'm sure we'll get to the O.
Yeah, no, this game, the offense really did kind of have a sputtering, slow start. It seems that's kind of their MO, is just it takes a little bit for them to get going. But once they did, it was long drive after long drive. Like, I think they had 3 straight touchdown drives of 75+ yards of, 7 to 16 or 17 plays. Like, they were just being methodical offensively in a way that we haven't seen with any regularity this season.
And in a long time, Mike, what was interesting is I was the first few touchdown drives, or even the first one, I was kind of still holding my breath. Like, is there going to be, a stall? Is there going to be a penalty? Is there going to be a turnover? By the 3rd or 4th one, I'm sitting there kind of legitimately confident in this offense. Like, where's our next play going to come from that we're going to get a big chunk of yards? Once we score, is it going to be a field goal or a touchdown? And how's the defense going to answer? I got comfortable, and I think it speaks to Ethan Kaliak-Manis and his ability to, really stand back there and land the ball where it needs to go. These receivers who are now becoming legitimate playmakers, and I know Miller, as far as a size or sheer athleticism standpoint, not necessarily the same as these emerging guys on the outside, but again, stepping up and doing well. But then these guys on the outside, these Long Island kids, man, Duff and Strong, just freak athletes. And then, Mike, let's talk about the fact that the offensive line reshuffled. A little bit of struggle with the run blocking, and especially early with the interior, but the pass protection was not bad. And when it wasn't great, Ethan kept his eyes downfield, found guys. What about the botch snap? I mean, I'm rambling.
The 4th down conversion, man, that was clutch. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot has to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan, his numbers don't necessarily wow you, but for a Rutgers fan, these numbers should, because he's regularly converting on 3rd and 4th down, at least tonight. It hasn't been something the offense has done very well, but nothing seems like frantic. Nothing seems like rushed. It always seems like at least we're getting a good look, whether it be, even if it's an incompletion, at least it was an on-target throw, whereas that wasn't necessarily what we were seeing last year. But you said it, man. Ian Strong continues his breakout season, 7 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown tonight. Dymere Miller had another huge game, 8 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. The backbreaker, of course, being that long touchdown pass, I believe, to put Rutgers up 28-17. Mm-hmm. This felt like a game Rutgers could have won by, 20 points if they kept their foot on the gas. But they did turtle a little bit at the end of the game, but they were able to burn clock, and they ended up winning by 2 touchdowns. So there's really no complaints, especially when you're almost a touchdown dog coming into this game. I was a little nervous to put money on Rutgers. I did have Rutgers money line in this game, even though I gave the pick out that I thought Rutgers would lose. I guess that was a little bit of emotional hedging, where at least I got my pick wrong, but I won some money, or vice versa. We could run through. I'm going to look through the chat. You guys have put a ton of comments in here already.
Yeah, I
So I'll
saw
try
some
and
of
get
them
to
hit
some
them,
of
and we'll
these.
talk about some of them.
Yeah, young players maturing and talents are showing. Absolutely. Young receivers we talked about. The young backs the last couple games have shown some promise in limited action. The young corners, Bo Mascow had a bunch of big plays today. Really impressed with him. Shaquan Loyal, I thought, was the best player on the field, though, for the defense.
Dude, and quite frankly, the way and just to talk about Steve's comment, I mean, you go back and there were legitimate concerns mid-season about what's going on with the developmental program, what's going on with the pipeline, because it was what we were seeing. However, look at that pipeline right now, and things evolve, and the season has evolved, and guys have caught on, and also maybe the coaching staff has plugged the right guys in and put them in the right positions to succeed. But all of a sudden, you're seeing these young players start to really own the moment, and you're seeing this pipeline. That's great to see. To your point about Shaquan Loyal, I thought he was all over the field. I thought he was the best player on defense. I agree with you. We were pretty high on him in our preseason stuff. I definitely was. A little biased. He's a Newark kid from West Side, but
Yep.
look, he gets hurt twice. The second time it's a knee, and I'm terrified. And then I see number 6 in the end zone, trailing to play the next drive. Just a tough, loyal Jersey kid and a Rutgers man, and just all over the field. He helped cause that interception. So great to see the defensive secondary step up with the young kids and the experience and the combination Harris, Simiak, and Chiano put together coming up big. Joe says Bo Masco and maybe the whole secondary gets the game ball. And you said it, Mike. I mean, all over the field, they were playing great. Mascot with the touchdown breakup. I mean,
oh my God. They played perfect technique through the hands in most of those deep shots. Like Ty Felton he was at one point the highest graded receiver on PFF. I think he's leading the Big Ten in receiving yards. Like that is an NFL player that they made look pedestrian at times tonight with how they played pass defense. He obviously got the touchdown, which you're never going to totally shut a guy like Ty Felton down. But I thought the way they defended him was excellent tonight overall.
Yeah. And look, one of the things I noticed was perhaps some of the run plays and sometimes with the yards after catch, they weren't necessarily as on fire as against Minnesota, but that also goes to the playmakers that Maryland has. I still thought compared to some of the games where we struggled, they did a much better job once again this week of wrapping up open field tackles, taking the right angles on guys that are playmakers like a Felton. Sometimes they're getting out there and instead of getting 16, 20 yards, they're getting 4 yards. They're getting 5, 6 yards. And that puts us in way more manageable third down situations as a defense. And then you have guys closing. Aaron Lewis finally getting a sack, getting home, knocking the ball, batting it. It was more complimentary, not just as a team, but within the defensive unit in general. And again, it speaks to fundamentals sometimes, man. Like take the right angles, stay home when you need to, make the right reads, hit the right holes, and then wrap up when you get there. We're just seeing after that bye week so far a big change in that regard.
Yeah, and Aaron Lewis is another guy who I would put up there for MVP of this game. He gets the sack. He almost caught an interception earlier in the game, or late in the game, I should say.
Yeah.
He had that crucial fourth down pass deflection to force the turnover on downs. This is the kind of guy I think we were hoping Aaron Lewis would be on a game-by-game basis. And hopefully these flashes kind of progress him into an NFL draft pick. Because I want all our guys to have success, even if they weren't necessarily having consistent standout performances at Rutgers. But he's coming around when we need him the most late in the season.
100%.
Carl Smith, I still might have a chance to win my over bet for Rutgers to win over 6.5 games. Selfishly, that's the first thing I thought of coming into this game too. Is like they might have a chance because I have quite a few shekels on them hitting that 7-win mark. Kids might be getting Christmas presents this year. I don't have any kids, but it might depend on if people get the gifts that they were hoping for versus the gifts they're going to get if they don't get the 7 wins.
Well,
go ahead.
I was thinking about you during the game because I was thinking about our predictions, and we were the bullish ones, like in a lot of ways. And it's interesting. You see, I want to go back a little bit to some of the people out there where we were stumbling, and all of a sudden we're 4-4. And people are saying, well, what did you expect? You got too many expectations. Your expectations are too high. And this is right where I had them. Hey, if they beat Nebraska, which was a close game, then the defense played well. If they can find a way to beat UCLA, who is not a good team this year, we would be right along where you and I predicted. Now, I know that's revisionist history, but at the end of the day, this is 2 big wins in conference. We're 6-4, and this was a pretty dominant win in the second half, all things considered. Like you said, we had to kind of turtle, and Kyle's 1 first down allowed us to keep running. At that point, you got to run. But had we kept throwing the ball, could have been even more. This is a really good team with a lot of potential. I know, if we get over the 6.5, it's a good bet for you guys. But I still think expectations were not inflated by you and I preseason. I think injuries hurt. I think some of the schedule didn't shake out how we wanted. But this team had a lot of potential and has a lot of potential. There's 2 games left, winnable games. And, I just think, people got to chill out a little bit. Those 4 games hurt because this team did have a lot of potential. We can do the Monday morning quarterbacking later, but good team with a lot of potential. I think we're kind of on target there, and I think you'll win your bet.
I hope so. I want to run through just kind of how this game flowed out for anybody who might not have been able to watch the whole game. So Rutgers lost the toss and Maryland deferred. So they got the opening kickoff, quick 3 and out. That's when I started to kind of feel a little shaky about this game. I thought it was going to be a bit of a shootout, and Rutgers not being able to score on that first drive definitely hurt. On the broadcast, Maryland's first drive, you couldn't really tell whether or not the field goal was through or not. It's just so hard to see from that angle. Field goals made or missed, and the announcers didn't really make it clear until they were like in commercial. It's like, we're tied up at 0-0. And then it's like, okay, I guess he didn't make it because nobody gave a firm confirmation of yes or no. Rutgers then has another quick drive, 4 plays, 15 yards where they punt. Maryland has another pretty sustained drive here. The first drive was 10 plays when they missed the field goal. Second drive was 13 plays when they made the field goal. This is when Rutgers offense started to click. If you notice here, this drive chart, 17 plays, 75 yards, almost 9 minutes of game time. Maryland matches it with a touchdown of their own. But then the next drive right before the half, which was the most impressive drive of the game because Rutgers is getting the ball with 4:37 left. Yeah. Last year, they wouldn't have even tried to score a touchdown. Right. This year, they're like, okay, we need to score in order to keep pace, in order to win this game. Like, you could tell, like, they had some urgency here. 9 plays, 75 yards. And sometimes it's just half the battle is just having confidence in your guys to be able to go accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
Maryland tries to score, and this is a great stand by our defense because they were moving the ball with a lot of ease on this drive, but Rutgers was just able to kind of stiffen when they really needed to. They go for it on 4th and 5, kind of in no man's land, and it's incomplete. Rutgers ends up kneeling it out to end the half. Maryland, another pretty efficient touchdown drive out of the second half kickoff. You kind of knew Rutgers needed to answer, and sure enough, they did. Look at this, another 11-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, capped off with a Kyle Monungai touchdown. And this is where the defense started to clamp down. You look, 3 and out, interception, turnover on downs, end of the game. I'm really impressed with how this defense because it's so hard to play defense in the 3rd and 4th quarter, especially when you're playing with half of your projected starters from the start of the season, and the offense just kept their foot on the gas too. Like, outside of one drive that I was a little disappointed in, that deep pass to Dymere Miller, the defense wasn't expecting that. They were expecting Rutgers to turtle, and I don't think they were ready for that one-on-one outside coverage. To score the touchdown by Dymere. And then this interception is right up there for play of the year by the defense. Tip pass ends up in the lap of Jordan Thompson, making a diving interception. You don't expect guys his size to make that play, especially a guy like Jordan Thompson, who, in fairness to him, hasn't necessarily made a ton of plays in his time on the Banks. I think he's only a junior, so he still has time. But, big time players make big time plays, and he certainly was that there. The Jay Patel hate, I think, needs to end.
Yes.
When you set him up for in reasonable situations like this, middle of the field, 46-yard field goal, he drills it. I have a ton of confidence in the guy still. Anybody who's really questioning that wasn't really fully paying attention to what was going on.
Agreed.
this was the drive that I was like, come on, guys, you're really just going to run this out like that?
Mm-hmm.
They just clearly wanted to burn some clock. They took 2.5 minutes off the, or 2 minutes and 15 seconds off the clock. I thought they should have maybe been more aggressive here, because you got to try and win these games. Just try not, and this felt like a try not to lose drive, but thankfully it didn't end up biting us, because Maryland's offense is too potent. They had all their timeouts remaining still. But obviously things ended up well, so I'm not going to harp on negatives here. Look at the team stats. Overall, Rutgers was pretty efficient when they needed to have it. On third down, they were 6 of 14, 3 of 3 on fourth. They had only 370 yards of total offense, but they were just making a lot of things look easy that they didn't early on in the season. The thing I'm really disappointed with is the penalties.
Yeah,
the penalties almost killed them. A few DPIs, a few bailout situations. Like Maryland converted on a few 3rd and longs, which just really almost broke their backs. But overall, the team under Shiano, the team typically has a very laser focus where they, are able to get through a lot of these games without like letting one play sway them emotionally too much one way or another. So overall, a huge win. And so it's interesting. Illinois played Michigan State today, our 2 remaining opponents. Michigan State looks like total, wet diaper bad.
They really don't look good.
But they need to win their final 2 games in order to get bowl eligibility. They play Purdue next weekend, which, seems like a fairly easy win for most people in the Big Ten. Then they got to play us last week. So they will have the motivation most likely to win that game. Whereas I think, when push comes to shove, Rutgers is kind of just fine making a bowl this season with how things played out. So I hope that's not the case, because I would love to see them take a step forward, as Aaron Brightman and Dave Anderson were talking about on the Scarlet Faithful this past week. But that's kind of the overlook of the game. What were some things that stood out to you about the game that maybe the stats wouldn't necessarily dictate, Larry?
Well, I think what you said about the drive, we go, 70 plus yards, 9 plays, I think it was, before the half. That is also when I really started to get some confidence in the fact that this is, because early on, like you said, I was like, if we're not going to be able to move the ball against them, the defense can bow up as best it can for the time being. But this, I thought, was going to be a shootout, so we better be able to move it. By the end of that drive before the half, that's when I had the confidence that, okay, this offense is going to move the ball somewhat methodically. They're going to eat up clock, and they're going to be able to drop back and throw the ball when we need to. And they're, like you said, they're going to trust their guys. And that was a huge, I think, and is a huge shift in philosophy and shift in attitude that I'm seeing with the team, is that faith in the quarterback and that faith in the playmakers on the perimeter to do things like that. I knew that, and anybody who watches football knows this, when you're in a game that's tit for tat like that and both teams can move the ball, it's going to come down to either a turnover or a defensive stop. And Rutgers did all of the above. And once the defense started clamping down, forcing them, into punt situations, I think there was finally a punt in the 3rd quarter, midway through, and then the interception. And then they were capitalizing on those turnovers and capitalizing on those punts. That's when I knew we were in good position. And then similar situation happened towards the end. You referenced it with, we kind of turtled up a little too early. I thought the same thing as you. There's too much time on the clock. It's only a 2-score game. They've got all their timeouts. You can't do it that quickly. Luckily, the defense stepped up. And from that point, we were kind of able then. And then it's the right call to kind of run the clock out and just get your head down. I just think when you're looking at a season like this, I think a lot of us thought it would be a step forward. I think this game in and of itself is indicative of one of those incremental steps in the fact that Maryland has had our number for several years now. And the way they play, the style that they play has been difficult for us. Getting that monkey off our back on the road is a big deal, and it just, there are some incremental steps to take. And to your point about bowl eligibility and who we're going up against, 2 challenging games for various reasons. But I think they're going to have all the motivation they need to try to take that step, because if they win even one of those, let alone 2, I mean, it is another incremental step forward. And I think in hindsight, it's still going to be a positive for the season, especially with these young guys. when you're talking about this game specifically, and like you said, Ethan, what was he? 20 of 30, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns. It doesn't feel with the eye test like it was that. I don't want to call the stats modest, but it seems like it was a lot more than that because of the way we haven't seen playmakers and quarterbacking like that in so long. I just think this game, having those guys perform the way they did, the way they were able to do last week and do it 2 weeks in a row, and actually see guys emerging now consistently, just bodes well for the season. And I think complimentary football, it's a cliche, but in the drive chart you were pointing out, in the yard chat, in the stats, it was complimentary. Finally, when the defense gets a stop, the offense capitalizes. When the offense stutters a little bit, the defense still gets a stop late in the game. It's been the story of the last 2 weeks. It's how you want to play football. And if we can get to doing that on a consistent basis every year, now you have your floor, and it's a good floor. It's a bowl, perennial bowl team floor. And we go from there. And honestly, looking back at where we've been, I'm good with it. So I'm excited about the next 2 weeks. And I thought this game was, I don't know, it gave me a lot of confidence just in a lot of different facets where I was wavering a little bit before the bye. And I think that's human,
I was definitely wavering before the bye as well, but they've proven that they actually made some big time adjustments and guys got healthier, which, I mean, the confluence of that is kind of what we're seeing on the field. I do want to shout out some of the super chats we've gotten. Mm-hmm. Alchemist, thank you so much for the $2 donation. P. Mata Poisette, thank you for the super sticker. Delmarva Fishing, once again, thank you. They get to 8 wins. Is this season still a failure? No, definitely not. If they get to 8 wins, even if you don't have any context for how they got to 8 wins, I think that was a step forward, a positive step forward. But especially given how the season played out, I think that the hand that Schiano got dealt, you could discuss the reason why that hand was dealt the way it was, but to get to 8-4 after how the season played out, going 4-0 to going 4-4 to finishing 8-4 would be huge. And Delmarva, thanks once again for another donation. Michigan State looks like poop emoji. We'll call it shit on the broadcast. Illini looks like us. Yeah, Illinois is very similar to Rutgers in terms of play style. I think Rutgers has a pretty good chance against them. We'll take a look tomorrow at what the line opens at, but they do not seem like the boogeyman that they did earlier in the season. There's just something about like a number next to a team's name that makes them more intimidating than they actually are. Yeah. Where Illinois just had a pretty easy schedule to start. Nebraska was clearly very overrated, as they usually are. Yes. Coming into a season. That really pains me. We lost that game. I think if we played Nebraska this week, I think we beat them.
100%. And one thing I want to say about Maryland, I think that we didn't even touch on talking about the game. How about the fact that they kind of needed this win because their remaining 2 games, I think it's Iowa and Penn State. And I was wondering, Mike, because I'm watching their defense is after every play just celebrating. I'm like, what's the issue? And that's the issue. I think they were really fired up. They needed this game, and they kind of had their backs against the wall. So taking that into consideration too, I think is also big. Some of their defenders, who was that number 22, I think, flying all over the field. I mean, there was a play where Kyle, it looked like he was going to break out around the edge. And Ethan, I think, almost kind of got in the way, but he just brings them down. They were flying all over the field, and they don't have a great defense. But early on, that defense was really putting up a really good fight, was playing very well. So for us to stay the course, and I think if you pay attention to it, like the drives, it started off, we're a little shaky. They're kind of coming at us. Then it's like, we're pushing through. It was like we got the first touchdown, the second one, but a little bit more like pain. You thought like, okay, it's coming down to 3rd down. It's coming down to 4th down. But then in the second half, when we're just, going and it's fluent, you just see how the team within the game kind of pushes past those impediments, pushes past the team that brings everything with its back against the wall and gets where they want to go. I just think I don't know. It was in this game in a vacuum. It's cool to see. And overall, I think it's cool to see. I think it's just something else to make note of,
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to shout out George Forbes for the donation. Thank you so much. A lot of people are talking about bowl destinations. We'll get into that in a minute because that is pretty complicated for 2 reasons. One is Big Ten might have 4 or 5 CFP teams, which will drastically kind of bump everybody up the
Yes.
pecking order. And also the Pac-12 teams are still bound by, or the former Pac-12 teams, I should say, are still bound by the bowl agreements from the Pac-12. So Washington, UCLA, USC, those teams make a bowl game. Oregon obviously is probably the CFP, so I'm not including them there. But they'll have to fulfill the obligations of the Pac-12.
Makes sense. It's going to be a convoluted situation then to figure that out. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and all the rules about like the amount of times a team can play in a certain bowl in a certain period of time. It's going to be a game of really strange musical chairs. Somebody's asking me, what are we drinking? I am drinking. It's called Whatever Nevermind. It's by Tired Hands Brewing Company out in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. It's very, very good. I also just got these glasses recently. I'll post the link. They're from this company called Uncommon Goods.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's dope. It's like almost like a mason jar type shape. And
yeah. Yep. But it's like a full pint, believe it or not. It doesn't look like it, but it is.
This is a non-alcoholic, and I do drink, and I drank last night at the basketball game, and then after at Blackthorn with the banging wings down there in New Brunswick. So I'm just recovering from my little heart thing, so I got to calm down. So tonight I'm drinking because I was telling Mike the Rutgers was giving me palpitations like crazy. I was eating like a steak and a salad, and I'm screaming at the TV, and I'm losing. So I have
wait. You're eating a steak and drinking after heart surgery? Come on, Larry. What the hell?
Dude, listen, and that's why I'm just assuring you all, okay, that the fact that I'm drinking the non-alcoholic is not indicative of my rambunctious and gregarious character, okay? This is Athletic Brewing, though. If you want, like, even just to sub in now and then for a non-alcoholic, it's banging, man. Like, I love IPAs. I love legit, like, craft brews, and it's good. So I'm drinking the Free Wave Hazy IPA. It's banging, and that's my little after-game drink in the Athletic glass because I'm a member. Like, they ship it to me. Monthly, kind of like Dollar Shave Club, and I just sip on that if I'm really itching for it. So that's what I got in my glass tonight. Everybody drink up, man. It's worth it. Two games in a row, nice time, you know.
Jersey Jet, thank you so much for the donation. Couldn't be more proud today. Basketball could go crazy. Good times on the banks. This is the kind of vibes that I was kind of expecting the season to have. You know, with basketball, November has just got this like magical, you know, intersection of college sports with, you know, fall sports ending. So you have like, you know, soccer with the NCAAs. Unfortunately, Rutgers obviously lost today. Start of basketball season, start of wrestling season, the end of football, right when the portal stuff starts now, signing days around now. So it's just like the best time of year to be a college sports fan, in my opinion. So agreed. Hopefully everybody's celebrating tonight with us. We're going to get through a lot of these comments too. Don't worry about it. You already mentioned this, but I thought I want to give Scarlet Faithful a shout out again because they were talking about how many monkeys we had to get off our backs this season. In hindsight, it's, you know, maybe a bit harder of a stretch than we thought. You know, the Nebraska monkey, the Lane Stadium monkey, the Washington monkey, the UCLA and USC we don't really ever play. Washington we did have a series with. You know, the Minnesota monkey, there's just so many things that we had to do first this season, even though we had a relatively easy schedule. And that was, I think, the nuance a lot of people lost this season was like, when we were talking about an easy schedule, it was always in comparison to one, the schedules we always had in the Big Ten, and two, comparing it to our Big Ten brethren, what they were going against.
And it set us up, Mike, because it's funny, even if the record doesn't get to where, you know, you and I had us at 9, I think, you know, it's still a season where there was a lot to be accomplished. And when you're talking about getting monkeys off your back, you rattled off a ton, and they're all meaningful. That big night game in prime time where we actually have a huge crowd and a great festive, you know, ambiance and actually come through with the in-conference win, you know, going on the road in Va Tech. Those things add up. And I think, yes, the record was something we were referencing. We were making predictions and talking about the ease of schedule, but just the accomplishments and step forward that was there in front of us. Some of that and a lot of that's coming to fruition, even if the record itself doesn't quite get there. Those opportunities were there with this schedule. It's going to be tougher, obviously, going forward. So it was important to capitalize on some of that.
Yep, totally agree. Another donation from Alchemist. Thank you so much.
Alchemist, you're killing it, man. Thanks.
Yep. Delmarva Fishing with another donation. Thanks so much. Once again, you're always one of the first to give us donations. So really appreciate you once again, man. With the injuries on to the line this year, there's no way that we win most of the games we did with Wimsat. Ethan saved us this year. He looked great today. Couldn't agree more. I didn't like being, pigeonholed into a quote unquote Wimsat hater or Gavin hater. Like, I didn't hate the kid. I didn't hate the guy. It's just clear as day. Like, when you bring here's like the blink test. If you brought your buddy to a Rutgers game last year, who had no context for the team, who was just a general football fan, what do you think he would have said watching Nathan play? What the fuck's up with this guy?
Yeah.
Like, it would just been like, how did he miss him? It's not because anybody disliked him. It was just like, come on, man, you got to hit that. Like, you not only like are a Division I quarterback, you're getting paid six figures now to make that throw. Like, there is an element of like reduced empathy with NIL that I do feel bad for these kids, because like it's just a factor of the game now. Like, everyone's getting paid. But I do think that because of that, people feel like the restrictor plate's off, where you can now say like truly ruthless shit to kids who are 17, 18, 19 years old, which isn't the case either. Yes. I think there has to, again, nuance is lost in a lot of areas in life right now. But I think we all kind of knew the potential Ethan had to kind of take this offense a step forward, even if it was at the expense of like maybe not having the top end speed running that Gavin had, which he clearly has an advantage over Ethan. But Ethan's getting more valuable yardage on the ground because it's these off script plays where he sees like A and B isn't there, so I'm just going to run because there's no spy on me. Like, they're not accounting for me in the defensive alignment, so I can get these 6 yards. The only thing I don't like about that is he dives head first a lot, which is just begging for injuries.
It's scary. I'll say too. I mean, I was obviously, I wanted Wimsat to keep improving. I believed he could keep improving, but I was thinking about that today too, just watching this game. I mean, you're not even in the same stratosphere without Ethan at quarterback this year. He's just, the throws he's making downfield. I mean, this game, the drives were based on capitalizing on a secondary that had problems, and we exploited it well. I mean, when we started throwing more is when we really broke through. You're not doing that. No offense to Gavin, but you're not doing it with him. And Ethan, you are doing it with. So I think that debate or that discussion, even, we could just let's put that to bed, like, like we did in the Olympics, please. Let's and I love nuance. We'll talk another time, but yeah, the world's lacking nuance and whatever. But 100% agree with that. But let's put it to bed, man. I mean, Ethan was clearly the passing upgrade this program needed. He became available. This team did what was best for them. Thank Gavin for coming through. It was a memorable season to go bowling, but Ethan is clearly a passing upgrade at the position, and we're just not in the place we are this year without him and a quarterback able to make those throws. Those playmakers need the ball, and he can get it to them.
Oh, 100%. Speaking of those playmakers, Big Watts said them big wideouts that Greg likes finally paying off. Yeah, I think he has the right idea, going after bigger guys versus shorter guys. It's just like, there's a lot of guys in the hopper, I guess, that didn't develop, and you finally have two guys who, by happenstance, went to the same high school. The Uncle Lenny connection. Shout out to Lenny Parisi if he's here. St. Anthony's. Yep. Ian Strong wasn't even really used as a receiver in high school. And it's one of those like weird Mohamed Sanu things where like you get him on campus, you think he's going to be a DB, and you realize pretty quickly he is really good at receiver. And I guess I can say this anecdote here. When he enrolled early, I went and saw a practice where it was like, who's this number 29? Like, I don't remember a 29 in the last season. This guy's making play after play, and I figure out it's Ian Strong as a true freshman, early enrollee. He was the best receiver on the field that day, and he was just making play after play. And I asked Richie afterwards, I'm like, who's fucking 29? And he's like, that's Ian Strong. I was like, that's Ian Strong. Dude, Ian Strong that day looked like a junior in college. He was huge. He was making these crazy 50-50 ball. Basically what we're seeing right now. He was doing that from day one as a college player. So Lovey and strong, and couldn't be happier that he's here with his high school teammate just balling out.
Yeah.
How about all those people ripping Shiano 3 weeks ago from Anthony? I don't even want to attempt to say your last name. I apologize. What a coaching job he's done since the bye week. Totally agree. But let's not absolve him of any criticism either. They chose to construct their roster the way they did, and it kind of backfired. And they were able to recalibrate and are having success after the bye. So you got to give him credit while also kind of questioning some decisions too. I don't think it's fair to ever be like, oh, things are going well now. Haters, eat it. Like, no, come on.
Well, I also think too, and I said this during the tumult, and I think Aaron Brightman said it too. It was like, look, no one of sound mind anyway in our sphere, content creators, journalists, whatever, are calling for his head or anything. But you have to be critical. When criticism is warranted, you criticize. And I think even Greg would probably tell you in hindsight that maybe he was critical of himself at that time and he adjusted and he took the criticism that he probably gave himself. He probably talked to his staff. They made adjustments in who was playing, in how they were playing, and all those things. And now it's doing better. So I have faith in him overall as a coach, especially because he can adjust and be self-critical. But being critical of him at that time was justified and warranted, and applauding him now is justified and warranted. And you don't have to be one of these, you know what I mean. Nuance again, but you don't have to hammer down a position forever and die on that hill. I think it's okay to kind of take the facts and information as it comes in and just be objective about it. And that's what I did anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's too many. There's not enough gray in sports talk, especially in a lot of things. But let's continue to scroll through here. Alchemist said, finally a great game to watch from start to finish. Great game, great times. Totally agree. It was one of those games where outside of the first 2 offensive drives, you just kind of I had a feeling. It was like, okay, it seems like Rutgers is kind of playing this game for keeps, and it seems like they're the better team here because, just because you were the better team, this week doesn't necessarily mean we'd beat Maryland every single week of the year. And we kind of saw that how the schedule broke last year with if we played Virginia Tech, for example, in week 12 versus week 3, I think it would have been a different story. Same thing with Nebraska or Northwestern, playing them week 1 versus week 12. I think we kind of lucked out. I think playing Maryland when we did, we kind of lucked out, especially after their bye in Eugene, Oregon, where they held their own to an extent. Like they covered the spread. Like they didn't get absolutely dog walked, but going out to the West Coast, getting your ass kicked, and then having to, have to bring it to a team that's probably more hungry than you are is not easy.
Yeah.
The D-line has completely turned their season around. I got to take a look at the numbers from this game, but I agree that the defensive line is getting significantly more pressure and obviously turning that pressure into sacks more than they had all season. I think they might have only had 1 sack tonight, but it just feels like quarterbacks are having to make more rushed decisions overall than they had all season against the Scarlet Knights.
I'm looking forward to whoever, especially in postseason or pre-bowl talk with Joe Harrisimiak, those types of questions. Was there anything in particular that you did that made an impact on the D-line or the pass rush? Because clearly they've made adjustments, and I don't know at this juncture, without kind of reflecting on the whole thing and really delving into rewatching the games, what the adjustments were. I know some guys they playing more, some guys they're shifting around a little bit, but specifically, what was it that changed? Because certainly it's almost night and day, and some of it's execution, but there's got to be some other schematic and maybe personnel decisions that have helped that as well.
And Knight and Day, thank you for shouting out the sponsor of this show, Knight and Day Apparel. I don't have their stuff on right now, but I got their coffee mug from this morning here.
There you go.
A lot of great stuff.
You check out Knight and Day Apparel.
Let's continue to try and find some comments here. Trying to find stuff that we haven't really covered already.
Yeah, something to respond to or just go off of. So many coming in, but
I know. I apologize. We're always really slow to get to these because, I have this overwhelming urge to just like talk when these things start, and then by the time I'm done, it's like 15 minutes later, and there's 37 comments, and you got to sort through which ones I have covered, which ones I haven't. Let's see. I do think, just making a bowl in general is so huge for development because you get those 3 extra weeks of practices. It's essentially like a spring practice in December, which when you don't have those, it's like really debilitating because in those practices you get to it's mainly for the younger guys and to get the veterans, who have just, dealt with 3 straight months of having their bodies in car accidents constantly, getting healthy. So getting that development time, like you saw it in the bowl game last year. Like, Abram Wright has that huge interception. Bo Mascow has a bunch of plays after not being able to play most of the season. Like that is just such a massive. It's going to be like huge for guys like Kaj Sanders. It's going to be huge for guys. We had a pretty good recruiting class in 24. And a lot of those guys are probably going to play in the bowl game because it doesn't affect eligibility. So
yes, I mean, I think I remember the first time I really saw Shaquan Loyal lay a hit on somebody. Might have been the Gator Bowl, I think. And so you start to see those guys start to emerge a little bit, and it just shows how important those practices are. Shiano's always talking about it. It's a big developmental time. I think it's also to get those young guys a taste of what's coming for next year, especially now with the portal and everything they got going on. These guys start to get their feet wet. They start to feel like they have that impact ability on the team, and it's a good segue into the next year. And by the way, I just think if you're a perennial bowl contender, it just sets a certain standard and a certain floor that resonates out there when you're on the recruiting trail, resonates with perception, and just, kind of adjust your trajectory and your aspirations to different heights, because look at your floor now. You're a bowl contender year in and year out. Maybe a year you miss it, you have 5 wins, but a lot of times you're trying to see whether you go from 6 to 8 to whatever. I just think it's important for the fans, for the culture, and for the development to be going to different bowls, getting different opponents. You get different exposure. It's just good to be a perennial bowl contender. I know in this day and age, so much emphasis on the playoff and all those things, and I understand that. But going to bowl games too, it's fun to be a college football fan, and getting to bowl games for the program and for fans, just part of the game, man. Just a new thing you weren't ready for. It wasn't on the schedule ahead of the season. Chance to put something in the trophy case. I don't know. Chance for the kids to make memories and cap off the season with a victory. I really do enjoy the bowl games, even though some of them are kind of throwaway bowl games. It's kind of fun. And I just think if you're a perennial bowl team, it just is good for the program. So I'm so glad we're eligible again. I really do think it's important. And I think a season like this with these expectations, not getting one would have been kind of really catastrophic. So getting the bowl eligibility is huge, because now all of a sudden the win against Washington, all the other things you mentioned, they're icing on the cake, and it just feels better overall when you get to the bowl game.
Yeah, and it's funny when you think about what bowls used to mean. Like, do you remember back in the day when like the bowl gift packages used to be this every year you'd have this like massively popular article where like ESPN would post like each bowl's like bowl gifts that they give to every player. Back when NIL wasn't a thing, it's like you could give up to a certain amount of money to each player in terms of the value of the gifts. So like this bowl had like PS4s or PS3s.
I do remember. Yeah.
This one had Bose headsets, and like each bowl had like their own little like unique little things. Like some of them I think Best Buy sponsored a bowl one year, and they basically let kids get $500 whatever shit they wanted from the Best Buys in the area. Yeah. Obviously with NIL now it's like a drop in the bucket, but yeah, that was always something I enjoyed. George Forbes, I'm sorry, said he loves how aggressive the offense was down the stretch. Gives Soroka credit. Ethan has been really solid, and totally agree. The aggressiveness was there outside of that one drive. Odell Perry
adjustments, Mike. That's one of the adjustments we were talking about. The aggression of the offense. I feel like he opened it up after the bye week. I'm not saying we never had a game where we threw it, but that turtle shell stuff, the last 2 games, no, we're going to throw the ball. We're going to be a real team. We have the players. We're going to put these kids that can make plays. We're just going to try to make plays. I think that's a big part of the adjustment. So props to Kirk and Shiano letting him do it.
Absolutely. Odell Perry Pittman said this is Rutgers' best game of the year. I'm sorry. Offense, defense, special teams all do the jobs. I'm going to agree wholeheartedly there. That's not something I even thought of, that we had harped on how Rutgers hasn't really played a complete game all year. It's always been like, if they have won, it's, hanging on by the skin of their teeth because the offense played good, but they missed a field goal. They missed they had a punt go, out of bounds at the 35. Their defense was allowing a lot of plays, but this was a true 3-phase win. And I don't think we've had a game like that. So great call on that, Odell.
And by the way, I want to go back to something you mentioned before about Patel. I couldn't agree with you more. Earlier in the season, I kept harping on the fact that when you're going to pass up, makeable field goals to go for it on 4th down, but then trot him out for 50 plus, you're kind of hurting, you're not setting him up to succeed. And I think just like you said, 40 something yards, I have the utmost faith in that young man. I like him a lot. I've kind of always liked him and his abilities. And he came through today because that comment mentioned special teams, came through when we needed him to kind of put the game just out of reach. And it's nice to see that.
Sean Morosi said AK dropped some balls into bread baskets. Yep, he's done that all year. He's a really good deep ball thrower, and that was something we highlighted when we were targeting him. I think he had last year, I think he was PFF's like 9th overall graded player on deep passes over 20 plus yards, and he was like 2nd in the Big Ten last year, only 2nd to I believe the guy who's on Syracuse used to be on Ohio State. McCord. Yeah, I think he was the top rated guy last year. Let's see what else we got here. Who says Greg can't win in November from Lou Narcisi? Yeah, I think Greg has matched his 2.0 win totals in November this year from the rest of his time at Rutgers. That's great. In the 2.0 era. He's 2-0 in November this year. I think he was like 2-15 the previous 4 seasons. Yeah, something crazy like that. Let's see what else we got. I'm also waiting for Shiano's presser to go up because I'd like to kind of have that play before we head out of here, but it looks like it's still not available.
Can we talk about the announcers for a minute and how terrible. Yeah. Mike, what the hell? And I remember, I'm looking at the numbers and the name, and they're saying the wrong guy, and I'm like, what are they talking about?
Did Jameer Wright Collins drop that ball? It's like he doesn't even play offense, bud. Come on.
What are we doing with that? And it's like Duff with the catch. I'm like, that's strong. And then he's like, yeah. And then he tries to recover. He's like, he's trying to, he's trying to not compete with his, high school teammate Duff, And then I think it was when Strong caught the touchdown pass. He says Dymere Miller. I think it was just Honestly, you could harp on the announcers all you want. A lot of people don't like Millen, whatever. I like a lot of announcers. I give them a lot more credit. This was pretty brutal, and I don't know what went wrong. Maybe he was, because how many times? Sometimes I get on the mic and somebody needs me to fill in or do, and I'm like kind of scrambling. Maybe the guy was just scrambling, but it was brutal, brutal.
And also, in fairness, is there a team that changes numbers more often in season than Rutgers? Ben Black started the year at number 2. Now he's 81. Christian Dremel started the year number 6. Now he's number 80. We have guys who are playing special teams that are changing jerseys constantly. I give them a bit of grace for that, but overall, you can't be doing that. Come on. Look at Robert Lee here, driving back to New Hampshire from Maryland. 8-hour drive in front of me tonight. Worth it. Go are you. Robert, you are a true sicko. If we had a sicko stamp we can give you, I'd stamp you with the sicko. That is awesome. It's so much easier to and comment in here, Robert, if you see this. Did you go to this game because you go to every game, or did you just have that Danny Breslauer feeling going into this game? You knew it was going to be a road victory. Hopefully we hear back from him.
The drive home is much better with a win.
Oh yeah. That's having the wind at your back versus in your face.
Otherwise get a hotel room and just go drink and pass out.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. It seems like Wisconsin is giving Oregon everything they can handle. Oh no, they won. Okay. Oregon ended up squeaking that one out 16-13.
Wow. But still, that just shows that defense, I think, we heard a little bit about the defense. I heard going into our game with them, and it looks like maybe they are. I think Wisconsin's maybe a little better than we thought they were going into the game, with us. Like you referenced before, you don't know who they are at some points in the season, and later it bears out.
Absolutely. Wisconsin's playing some good ball right now. It's a shame that they ended up losing that game. It's good for the conference, honestly.
Yep.
You want as many CFP teams as possible, just because that money gets pooled at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Rutgers fans who made the trip to Maryland. Rutgers fans were definitely making all the noise at the end. Yep, it seemed that
Big
way
shout.
from the broadcast. Anybody who was there can kind of attest that it seemed like it was more Rutgers fans than anything making noise. I also want to shout out just the amount of people we have on the stream right now. We have almost 1,100 people at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night talking Rutgers football. Love you guys and girls for being on this broadcast right now. Some more just good vibes I'll highlight here. Garden State Gardener, boom, great night. Jersey Jet talking about the Rutgers faithful traveled. We definitely heard you on the TV. We 100% did.
Are you chance and everything?
Yep. This is a good question from HMINAS. Who on the team do you think is draftable? I'm just going to keep this to people who are draft eligible, right? Who will be leaving after the season, who are out of eligibility. I think the following guys will get drafted. And Larry, if you think there's more, feel free to add more in. I think Kyle Monangai gets drafted. I think Holland Pierce gets drafted. I think Eric Rogers is a late round draft pick. I think Shaquan Loyal is a late round draft pick. I think Tyreen Powell, depending on how his medicals turn out, he will be a draft pick. If his medicals come out clean, I think he can be a 4th round pick. If they come back not so clean, I think he's probably going to be a late round pick. But regardless, I think he's an NFL player. I think that Robert Longerbeam will probably be a guy who is a priority free agent. And I think Keontae Hamilton finds his way into the back of the NFL draft.
I could see that too. And I agree. Yeah.
Flip Dixon is another guy I think is probably a priority free agent who, had he not gotten hurt this year, I think he could have really buoyed his stock. But he's a great player. It's just he still is dealing with a lot of injuries. I know that's kind of just firing a lot of names at you. So to recap, I got Kyle Monangai and I got Holland Pierce on offense. I got Keontae Hamilton, Eric Rogers, Robert Longerbeam, Flip Dixon, and Shaquan Loyal on defense. And I forgot Aaron Lewis. Aaron Lewis is an NFL player. He'll probably be a late round draft pick too. And then Tyreen Powell. So I think there's 9 guys who are departing this team this year who will be on NFL rosters this offseason at least.
Yeah, I agree with all those names. And I think that, when you start to encompass undrafted free agents too, some guys are going to be in some camps. I wouldn't be surprised. Damir's a smaller guy and he's got some, things in that regard.
Damir too, that's 10.
Yeah, would not be surprised to see him in camps, whether he's drafted late or whether he's one of those, wideouts. Teams always need wideouts in camp. They always look for wideouts to make impacts, whether it be deeper on the depth chart or, guys who shine in camp and get chances on the field, or guys who are on special teams. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Damir either. And it just goes to show, I think, the pipeline. These guys are guys who came in and developed. Not all. I mean, obviously some are transfers. Flip, but we've had Flip for a couple of years now too. And some other guys who were homegrown, like Shaquan Loyal and Holland Pierce and Kyle Monangai. And some of those guys came out where it could go either way, whether they were going to be draft picks at the end of their college tenure. And this program and coaching staff has developed them to the point where they are NFL caliber players and they're ready to take that step. And I think that speaks to the pipeline and that speaks to what this program wants to be. Again, perennial bowl contender, continuing to make incremental steps, but putting guys in the NFL and specifically putting guys in the NFL that maybe weren't necessarily shoo-in NFL players when they got here, but now have become, up to that caliber. That's a lot of guys. And I don't think there's that much variability, Mike, on who we said either. I don't think any of them are like long shots. So that's great.
Yeah. Totally agree. While I don't have a Shiano presser, I do have Rutgers singing the alma mater after beating Maryland. This is on NJ.com's YouTube page, so go watch that. Gianno looks hyped.
I love it.
There's going to be some dancing in that locker room.
You're damn right. I like the uniforms too, by the way. I thought the whites with the red helmets were crisp today. I dug that. I was into it.
Yep.
I like a lot of the different uniform combos. Like, I'm not one of those guys that's it has to be scarlet red all the time only. I love scarlet red. Look at what I'm wearing. Look at what Mike's wearing.
Yep.
But I like some of the change up, man. I thought these were nice today. So I don't know. I think sometimes on the road games you don't get the presser up early. They don't get it up early. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Trying to see if there's I got to get through these comments. I'm sorry.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, and I agree, Jonah. The all whites are crisp.
Something I agree with Jersey Jet here. Share and like and subscribe.
Please
totally
do.
agree. Share, subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to Larry K's channel, Night Watch. I know that's a big thing. Larry's trying to get to 1,000 subs right now. So
type in Night Watch, Larry K, Night Watch, and go over there and subscribe, man. If you're on here, 1,100 people, Night Watch, Larry K, check me out, man.
Yeah. Kyle said, Greg's busy with the team celebrating. You know how emotional he gets after getting to 6 wins. Yep, that's probably what's going on right now. I think there's going to be in the Night Flicks this week. There's going to be a video it's going to be a 9-minute video, and the last 30 seconds are going to be Shiano doing some like typical old white guy dance. Like
that's what he
does. Like, that's what it's going to be.
Old white guy jumps in the circle.
Yep.
And it's going to be moving like that. Yeah,
it's going to be a meme for sure. How different would this offense be if we had a healthy tight end room? I mean, I think the tight end it's like the ultimate Swiss Army knife of an offense, where you could have a guy who's basically like an extra lineman in some formations, or they're an extra receiver, or they're so versatile if they're high caliber enough players. I think Kenny Fletcher has the receiver ability, but he doesn't have the lineman ability to block.
Right.
I should say.
Those guys are coveted who can do both. And I think, it's interesting, right? Because had we still had Fletcher, we were using him quite a bit. Do we wind up switching it up and getting some of these younger guys as involved? I know Chris Long was out today, and there was some, switch up on the perimeter. But do we see, the other guys, running through them, or do we still see those guys emerge? But now you also have Fletcher in the middle of the field for some of these tough first downs, and it's even tougher for defenses to cover us. Could have gone either way. It's a shame that we lost so much of the tight end room, especially when we finally using them this year.
I know that Virginia Tech game was like, oh, we're throwing to a tight. Oh, we're gonna keep throwing. Oh, we're gonna keep throwing. Oh, wow, this is a lot of throws to the tight end, and it keeps working. This is weird. But yeah, no, I think the tight end position will continue to use, and I think Kenny Fletcher will have a much better year next year than this year, especially once he kind of learns the nuances of blocking, which is not easy. He's got the physicality. He's got half of the battle is wanting to run full speed into another human being who's the same size as you when you're 250 pounds. So he's got that down. Yeah, Josh, we're waiting for the post-game presser. It hasn't been posted yet.
And by the way, speaking of Fletcher next year, how about the fact that, it's sad that we lost so many guys to injury, but if you start looking at the red shirts and you start looking at potential guys who can return, who we didn't initially think would and the emerging younger guys next year, we thought we were going to be now I'm not saying it's the same level as this year with all the returning seniors, but we thought it was probably going to be more depleted than it actually is going to be next year now, assuming some of these guys come back. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Yeah,
it's unfortunate for this year, but if you can get Felter back, if you can get Mohamed Toure back, if you can get Wesley Bailey back, that's a hell of a starter kit for an experienced team. And then you get, obviously, 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen. You get your top 2 of your top 3 receivers back. You get Ethan back. You get, the backfield I feel really confident in even without Kyle Monangai.
Yes.
I feel pretty good about it. And I think they're going to go pretty heavily into the portal this year where they haven't in the past.
It's time to do that.
Yep. Alec, our faithful reporter who is at the game covering everything.
Alec.
Rutgers rivals. Appreciate you, bud. Reporting live from the CQ. I can't even believe that's the name of it. I'm so used to just Bird Stadium. Same way it's hard for me to like Jersey Mike's and Rutgers.
Yeah, it's the rack. I always interchange them.
Yeah. He's reporting live from the CQ parking lot. Unbelievable effort. Please not Detroit. Alec, comment below. Did Greg's presser go well? Is that up yet? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, what's going on with Greg's presser, Alec?
Time to make the 3-hour trek back home. Yeah, Alec, drive safe, bud. We don't need it anymore. We both experienced the dreaded highway car on fire traffic the last few days. So Adam said we need to buy more 4- and 5-star players to have more depth, both in recruiting and the portal. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. If it's a money thing, we're not going to win those more often than not. But I think they can. There are edges to just being more thorough and having connections and just having playing time available, which not all schools can offer. Money doesn't cure everything, but it definitely cures most
helps.
things.
I mean, and maybe you get the year where you get guys like look at basketball. I know that's a unique situation, and we're not gonna fill out our football team that way. But maybe you get the occasional guy like that. We got to build up 3 stars and 4 stars. This is what we're gonna have to do.
Yep. Lavish Eagle says defense against the dark arts teachers from Harry Potter lasts longer than Rutgers tight ends. It's a cursed position. That is one amazing comparison here. I totally agree with that analogy.
Who's the last one? Croft? That was like perennial, really good, well-rounded NFL caliber.
That's a great question.
We used Tyler Croft, maybe. Who was after him? Anybody?
It was probably the last one was probably Croft. Yeah. But Shiano did have like a weird amount of good tight ends develop. You look to DC Jefferson had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Kevin Brock, believe it or not, played like 7 years in the NFL. Clark Harris played 15 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
Mind you, that was at long snapper, but still. He had a lot of success with tight ends who were not the most heralded recruits. But yeah, I don't think they've really done a whole lot outside of that. Ethan, this is a great anecdote from JT8. Ethan has now passed for 200 plus yards in 4 straight games. He's over 2,000 passing yards on the season and 15 touchdowns on the season. I feel pretty good about my over-unders I set before the year now. I think I had Ethan's stats at his over-under at 2,500 yards and his over-under for touchdown passes at 17.5. And given that he's at, over 2,000 and 15 touchdowns, that's right on target. Let's keep going. Good question. Alex said, all went well on our end. Wonder if they're going to upload it on the bus.
Right.
We can talk bowls now, I guess. I'm going to share my screen here. Here's the bowl tie-ins for the Big Ten this year. So they have the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. And the reason you don't see the Rose Bowl on here is because the Rose Bowl is a part of the college football playoff.
Gotcha. Yep.
So they have the Citrus Bowl. They have the ReliaQuest Bowl. They have the Duke's Mayo Bowl, Music City Bowl, Pinstripe Bowl, Guaranteed Rate Bowl, and the Quick Lane Bowl.
Those in order or no?
I don't know if they're in order. I've looked at a couple different, listings, and they've been in this order. So I think this is the order.
Okay.
So let's just assume it is, or maybe it's not. Who knows?
Well,
a lot of games.
Yeah.
You want to avoid the Quick Lane Bowl. That's in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the day after Christmas.
It's rough.
Politi and company keep talking about meeting up
ad nauseum
in the casino on Christmas morning. Having the most depressing reporting journey of their lives.
That's all I think of when I think of that bowl now. Is those 3 and that scene.
The Pinstripe Bowl we're probably not going to, even if that's our slot, because they typically like to have, I think most bowls like this, they typically like to have different opponents year after year. The Music City Bowl will be awesome. Nashville.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. Duke's Mayo Bowl is in Raleigh, I believe, or Charlotte. Charlotte, I think it is. The Citrus Bowl would be really cool as well. I think the most likely right now, if we go 6-6, we're probably going to the Quick Lane.
Yeah.
It was 7-5. I think we're going to go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl. If we can somehow go 8-4, be beautiful. Maybe we get to the Music City Bowl. Maybe we have an actual like destination bowl game for once.
Yes.
But we'll see. So here's the selection process down here.
Okay.
So the bowl selection process for the Big Ten isn't completely finalized. First, it's college bowl. It's college football's biggest conference, but it only retains ties to 7 bowls in 2024, which is weird. 2 additional factors. It says it doesn't mean that only 7 Big Ten teams will make bowls. The Pac-12 will still likely, the former Pac-12 teams will still likely play in the Pac-12 affiliate bowls, like we said.
That makes sense.
This is
so 7 tie-in bowls, but the Pac-12 teams have tie-ins with the Pac-12, so that opens things up. Plus the college playoff teams.
Yep.
So plenty to go around. And honestly, any of those seem pretty enticing to me, other than the quick lane. So kind of got a nice little shot there. You know, a nice little assortment there of some team. You know, some games we could play in, some places we could go.
Yeah, YC by the Sea. I just kind of talked through it. Also, YC by the Sea, you were one of our winners in our giveaway contest. So contact Richie.
Congrats.
RuRichie@gmail.com. You were one of the winners of the jerseys. So hit him up because you have a nice little gift waiting for you. Jonathan B said, somebody please get Adam. Guy's losing it. I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
Is this Adam?
Yeah, that's Adam because he's
okay. Okay, maybe that's it.
I
yeah, he's talking about wanting to raise a lot of money.
Yeah,
he's hating right now. Ethan's mediocre at best. Come on, brother. We just won a huge game, and you're gonna bring this kind of energy. Come on,
bro. What are you doing?
Okay. Apparently, he's a USC fan and troll. Okay.
My condolences.
All right, disregard Adam. Don't respond to him anymore, guys. Don't feed the trolls. I'm gonna keep going through here. Wow, apparently we've missed a lot with this Adam guy. Jesus,
just getting the chat all revved up. What are you doing? We had a nice little chat.
Like a wall of Adam, hate. Not hate. It's deserved, but whatever. Delmarva Fishing. I played high school ball in Bergen County. Shiana reminds me of every coach I knew growing up. Yeah, I think that's kind of why Shiana's had success recruiting in New Jersey, because he reminds everybody of somebody they knew growing up.
Yes,
because he's a Jersey guy. He knows, he's one of us.
Yes.
Which shouldn't surprise. Boo this man, bro. You missed a whole lot. Blah blah blah. There's a side podcast going on in this chat. Yeah, yeah. To say the least. Delmarva, once again, thank you, bud. Adam and Sean going at it in the comments. Yeah, it seems like it.
If we could provide the venue for whatever kind of nonsense goes on after a win, we'll do it. It's a party in here.
Yeah. So we've gone over an hour in here. We have almost 1,200 people. I appreciate everybody who's joined. You
guys are awesome.
If anyone has any pressing questions they want answered, submit it now or forever hold your peace for the next few days. We'll be back on Monday, I'm sure. But just a huge win. Just a massive, massive win for this program. Gets them to bowl eligibility for the second year in a row. I think the first time they've gone to 2 straight bowls since like 2012, something crazy like that. Obviously Shiano had that huge run. Actually, no, it wouldn't have been 2012 because they missed in 11 when Eric got hurt. It might have been the first time since 10 and 9 since they've gone to back-to-back bowls.
Wow.
Which is huge.
Really huge.
I'm going to look that up now. Especially for recruiting. Yeah, to get a win over, a rival in Maryland is massive. Yeah, this is the first time they've gone to back-to-back bowls since the 2008 Papa John's Bowl and the 2009 St. Peter's Bowl. So the Papa John's Bowl, this is a throwback. This was the last year, I believe, Russell Wilson was at NC State. Russell Wilson gets hurt at halftime. Rutgers is getting their shit pushed in by Russell Wilson. They end up making a comeback. And then that St. Peter's Bowl was that, absolute waterfall game where it was Mohamed Sanu, it was Tom Savage as a freshman. Like it seemed like everything was set up going forward, and then it all fell apart the following year.
That was fucked up. I remember that era and the letdown when it kind of fell apart like that.
Yep. I still remember that late in the game, Damaso Munoz, who's I believe on staff now, I think he had an interception or a fumble return, and it was like Rutgers was up by like 20 points. He takes it and runs it into the end zone, but he does like a front flip into the end zone. And that was back at the time where they still like gave penalties for like any sort of celebration. And Schiano like couldn't even like pretend to be mad. He just like covered his mouth and he had the guy come over and he was like, "You're awesome," whatever. Like not that's not what he said, but like it was the last game of his career.
Right.
And they were up by 20. So it was one of those situations Schiano couldn't really be that mad at.
Right.
Actually, I think I messed up here. I think I was wrong on the bowl stuff. I think it was the first time they've gone to back-to-back bowls since the 2014 Quick Lane Bowl and the 2013 New Era Pinstripe Bowl.
That makes sense.
That was my bad. My bad, everybody.
What was 13? The Pinstripe was that was the Vatech?
That was Notre Dame.
Oh, that was Notre Dame, right? The flood, and then the next year was our first year in the Big Ten. Was that it?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah. So 13 was the last year. So we were in the AAC for 1 year, and then we went into the Big Ten. So good call on that, Garrett Baker. My bad. And Alec and everybody else who probably said the same thing. All right. Yeah, we get it, guys. I was wrong. Yeah, my bad. Again,
my goodness,
it's tough to keep up with these comments, and
I know it is.
All right. Well, thanks once again to everybody who joined. We're almost at 1,200 people. I am super excited that we will be attending a bowl again. It's huge for Schiano. It's huge for the program in general. It's kind of, you got to kind of look at everything on like a hyper short-term scale at this point. Like Rutgers is now in the eyes of most high school prospects like a winning program again. They're average. Whereas it's so easy to just be, you'd have 2 really bad years in a row and you're a doormat. So now that Rutgers has kind of gotten out of that situation, I think we've kind of reset the foundation for the program. We don't have to necessarily be worried about being labeled with a really negative connotation, but now we have to take that next step forward. Now, how will we do that? We can do that this season, or do we have to wait for next season to do that? Larry, do you have any final words before we head out of here?
Just look, I mean, I think where we were a few weeks ago really, put me in a tough place. And I know you, Mike, and all of us fans who are diehards who live and die by this, because I think we really have a lot of belief in the trajectory of the program and where it's going as a school in general, because you look at basketball too and some other things. And it was a tough few weeks, and it's just so great to have 2 wins in a row to start this 4-game home stretch, to get another monkey off our back, and to really see that the coaching staff and the young talent on the team is in fact taking the steps forward that we thought they could. It's just a great time in that regard to be a Rutgers fan. Feels Knight and Day Apparel from the last month, and it's just great to be here. So also thanks for having me as always, and thanks to everybody listening, and watching out there. It's always a blast to be with RU faithful and with the community here and to be a part of this fan base. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yep, and you can follow Larry K on the Night Watch channel. Once again, he's trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so get over there. And if you haven't already, subscribe to his channel. I want to touch on one last thing here, from earning up to the point of how prospects view the program. Who are our top recruiting targets for the December window? This class is basically filled up high school-wise, but portal stuff is just starting up. We just did a podcast last week where we were talking about hypothetical portal prospects if they decided to enter the portal. We went over 30 guys. I did probably a few thousand words on the guys I think we should target if they entered the portal. That'll continue to heat up. It's probably my favorite time of the year to talk recruiting, is the portal window for football. So that is going to be opening up in about 2 weeks. So stay tuned to the boards, because we'll have everything there. First, we'll obviously talk about it on the pods as well. But if you want to know what's going on with Rutgers in the portal, you got to be on the Night Report. You got to be on the premium boards, because that's where it's going to be posted first. But Thanks once again to everybody who's joined. We're at 1,161 viewers right now at 11:24 p.m. on a Saturday night. So have a drink, watch something more relaxing than whatever we were watching today. It was a good game. That's not what I mean. But just go enjoy the rest of your night.
Yes.
We will be back on Monday. Larry, thanks once again for joining. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast live show. Signing off.
Awesome, dude.